welcome to Friday's stream. We've got several things to catch up on and more to look out for. Right now, tick tock, what's going on with Israel and Iran? Trump yesterday, with Caroline Leavitt being the Trump White House press secretary, made a statement that pretty much shocked everybody and gave a timeline for when we expect the war to come to an end. Because at that point, he's saying that the U.S. will enter it. Within 2 weeks, if nothing essentially happens, if the regime hadn't toppled, if there's no serious progress, because again, Trump wants this done quickly. He knows the American people don't want some sort of war or long drawn out conflict. He's given a time period for probably Israel to make a decision about how they're going to end this. Can they end it in 2 weeks with U.S. support? We will see. The other option, of course, being that the Ayatollah somehow decides to make an agreement that would support what Trump is looking for, which is a complete end to nuclear armament with Iran, which I don't see that happening. Just saying. From the president, based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, I will make my decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks. Yeah, whether a talk may or may not, like, really, that's not what this is about. This is giving Israel a 2-week time period to get it done or it's over. Trump's going to have to do something. Trump's goal when it comes to Iran is not regime change, sure, but Israel's it is, but rather ensuring that the Islamic Republic cannot obtain a nuclear weapon. And how can that be done? By preventing them from continuing to walk down that path, enriching material to make a nuclear weapon, which according to the IAEA, they had enough to make 6. Israel claimed 9. Regardless, they had enough material to actually make something. Let's be clear, Iran, all it needs is to achieve a nuclear weapon. All they need is a decision from the Ayatollah to do that, and it would take a couple of weeks to complete the production of that weapon, which of course poses an existential threat not just to Israel, but the U.S. and the entire world. And that is something the entire world, including countries like Russia, is in agreement with, that Iran cannot obtain a nuclear weapon, and that's why the president believes that. He has believed that, again, not just political career, but his entire life. One note on this, that's what the White House is stating, that they could do it within a couple of weeks. That's not what other countries and other analyses are showing. They show that once they decide that they're going to make a nuclear weapon, it could take anywhere from a month or 2 to 6 months. Regardless, the timeline is very short to have a nuclear weapon. And that's the key, is once they get that nuclear weapon, they will give it to one of their proxies. The Houthis, Hamas, they will give it to somebody who's going to use it. That's always been the goal. Right now, this morning, as we're talking, there's been another Iranian missile strike. Now, Israel comes out and claims that they have knocked out about 20% of the Iranian missile sites. I don't know. That still looks like a lot of little dots. I mean, I don't know about you, but that seems still like a lot. So, Israel, you got 2 weeks to get it done. Good luck. So when Homan comes to town, Homan? I like this guy. Recently, there was an issue where the Ag Secretary, just a few days ago, came out and stated that they will not be targeting, they being ICE, will not be targeting farms, hotels, meat packing plants, and so on. Homan has overruled her and stated, no, that's not going to happen. We are taking everyone out. And thankfully, that is a statement that's being put out. But I want to note a couple of things from this story. Homan has stated that he is sympathetic to industries that have been affected by immigration enforcement, but added that as long as the laws are on the books, it's ICE's job to enforce them. There's a right way and wrong way to hire workers. There are legal programs to bring in farm workers in. I've been saying for years that Congress needs to address this, but because Congress has failed, it doesn't mean we ignore it. It's illegal to knowingly hire an illegal alien, and that's the point. This ag sec can go pound sand because it doesn't matter who you're hiring, if they're legal or illegal. No, it does matter. So that's what Haman's getting the point at. You cannot carve out exemptions to a law for businesses just because they're in a certain sector that is creating a horrible and dangerous precedent. Who do you think is going to do that going forward? That is complete discriminatory business practices by the federal government. It's ridiculous. You cannot agree to that. So Homan did the right thing. He talked to Trump and said, no, stop it. This does not make sense. You cannot do carve-outs. That is just not right. Now, having said that, Homan has pointed out that they will be focused on criminal nexus. So what that means is, according to Homan, and this is true, he's going to be focused on sanctuary cities. Why? Because that's where the large concentration of them are. However, he will still be targeting corporations that have actively used Tyson, illegal aliens as a means to an end to be able to essentially do slave labor. And Tyson is one of the worst culprits of this. They had over 40,000 illegals in their employment as recently as like 2022, 2023, where they were proud of it and would hire another 40,000. I want ICE, Border Patrol, and our great and patriotic law enforcement officers to focus on our crime-ridden and deadly inner cities and those places where sanctuary cities play such a big role. You don't hear about sanctuary cities in our heartland. That's where the problem is. They knowingly release public safety threats, illegal aliens to the community every day. That's why we're sending more resources to sanctuary cities to take the public safety threats off the street. Fantastic. Again, there's a small portion of the population that commits the majority of the crime. You lock up that small portion, guess what? Crime plummets. And that's what Homan knows. That's what he's after. So good on you, man. Thank you for straightening out the president and pointing out that if you're an illegal, peace. And we've got an evil C-nut on the loose. So the Boston mayor is an absolute horrible person. She's a horrible anti-white racist. She's evil. Go look up anti-white Boston mayor statements. She hates whiteys. From her, I don't know of any police department that routinely wears masks. We know that there are other groups that routinely wear masks. NSC 131 routinely wears masks. A reporter, happening to know what that is, just to clarify, are you comparing ICE to, you said NSC 131, a neo-Nazi group? Are you comparing them to a neo-Nazi group? I don't know who that reporter is. I wish they called them out. Good for that reporter for clarifying. And here is the mayor. What I said is that Boston police are no police department. What I know at the local level routinely wears masks. So again, comparing them to a neo-Nazi group. That's just abhorrent and disgusting. And DHS wrote, Mayor Wu comparing ICE agents to neo-Nazis is sickening. When our heroic law enforcement officers conduct operations, they clearly identify themselves as law enforcement while wearing masks to protect themselves from being targeted by known and suspected gang members, murderers, rapists. Attacks and demonization of our brave law enforcement is wrong. ICE officers are now facing a 413% increase in assault. Pointing out something here, latest statistic just came out this morning. The increase is actually a 500% increase. ICE agents are being targeted. There are already people online trying to dox the ICE agents. So of course they need to wear masks, some sort of face covering to protect their families. But again, this horrible mayor wants that. She wants the families, she wants the ICE agents to buckle under pressure and quit because all the ICE agent is trying to do is protect their family. But again, leftists don't care about their family. They want to destroy the family unit and they want to see people suffer. Get out while you can, Democrats, because if you got a soul, you shouldn't be part of the Democratic Party. The White House then noted, ICE just conducted its largest ever immigration enforcement operation across Massachusetts and Mayor Wu's city of Boston. They arrested nearly 800 illegals with criminal records. Going back to Homan, he is targeting criminals number one. A member of the United Front Work Department, an intelligence division of the CCP, is serving as a co-chair of a group that helped raise $300,000 for Wu's 2023 mayoral campaign. I think this is very interesting. You know that Soros is trying to destroy the U.S. by having weak DAs that essentially allow criminal behavior and activity within the United States. What if the CCP saw that playbook and was like, let's put a couple mayors in there. Maybe if we get a Soros DA and a CCP mayor, see how fast the city crumbles underneath itself. Food for thought. CPAC, February 22nd of this year. Homan had a fantastic statement, and it really illustrates what's happening across these sanctuary cities. I'm coming to Boston. I'm bringing hell with me. I looked at the numbers this morning. I stopped counting at 9. So there were more. 9 child rapists that were in jail in Massachusetts, but rather than honoring an ICE detainer, they released them back on the street. You're not a police commissioner. Take that badge off your chest, put it in the drawer. You then became a politician. You forgot what it's like to be a cop. And guess what? The men and women of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, they found those predators. They locked them back up, and we're going to deport them from the U.S. That's what these sanctuary cities are doing. They're allowing child molesters, rapists, murderers to just go back into mix with the population. They want the destruction of the United States, and you Democrats have allowed it to happen by voting them in. If you are a blue person and you have gotten out of a blue area to a red area, break the cycle. Stop this demonization of the United States. We are a fantastic country, and we need to keep it that way by adhering to our laws and customs. Suck it, Elmo. Federal Appeals Court withholds limits on Florida drag show rules, including no minors. For you blue hair types that are actually pulling out your fake wigs, explain it to me. Why would you allow a child at a burlesque show or a strip show? You wouldn't, would you? Because it would be offensive. It would be to the detriment of that child's development. It would be grooming, and that's what you freakazoids are doing. A federal appeals court has ruled that the city of Naples, Florida, can lawfully require a drag performance at this weekend's Pride Fest event to be held indoors and restricted to adult audiences. The majority concluded that the city's decision to impose restrictions was not based on the group's view, but rather on public safety. Duh. The judges also held that the performance venue, a city park, constitutes a limited public forum where speech protections of the First Amendment are subjected to greater regulation. But the main point is you're out in public, and if you're doing that in public, kids are going to see it. Nobody wants to see that. Get it behind a closed door. This is the one sole dissenting appellate judge. The city's restrictions were undeniably viewpoint and content based, and thus unconstitutional, regardless of whether the park is viewed as a traditional or a limited public forum. So this horrible decided to say that whether it's inside or outside, in other words, it's not offensive to anyone, it's not grooming to a minor, she doesn't care, she thinks it was purely a political advantage. No, that's projection. That's how this judge is ruling. That judge just played themselves. They need to be ousted. Reacting to the 11th Circuit's reversal, the ACLU, which is no longer a good group anymore, of Florida called the decision disappointing and would vow to continue the legal fight. I hope you do. I hope you appeal this to the Supreme Court, because Amy Coney Barrett finally showed what she is actually conservative on, and that is protecting children from you grooming gangs. Said it. The law prohibits the admission of children into live performances that Florida considers obscene for minors. However, the court found that the restrictions in the act were too vague, and they applied the shows held to restaurants. So just pointing out, it's a little vagary. Whoop-de-doo. It was supposed to be vague to protect as many kids as possible. Why do you care so much? Why do you conservatives care? This is why we care. Illinois' YMCA caught hosting an LGBT youth camp with group that distributes tucking underwear. I didn't even want to know what that is, but I had to find out over the last 4 years due to Biden and Target. Yeah, it's what you potentially think it is. It's disgusting. And Illinois Y is hosting an LGBT-themed camp for second graders. These are kids as young as 7 years old, alongside an activist organization that hands out gender-affirming clothing like tucking underwear and chest binders to anyone regardless of age. What do you think they'll be handing out at camp? Camp Kaleidoscope, a program designed for LGBT youth or youth that are part of the LGBT families. The camp is offered at a privately rented residential space in partnership with the Uniting Pride of Champaign County, an activist organization that distributes clothing items meant to alter the physical appearance of children who identify as transgender. I love how they say people. It's children, guys. 2 sessions are being offered, one for children in 2nd through 5th grades and another for kids 6th through 9th grades. They're targeting and grooming children. Here it is, right here, in black, white, blue, and nasty rainbow flag. The American Parents Coalition, hats off to you guys, which has been leading an awareness campaign against the wise embrace of gender ideology and policies encouraging male access to female spaces. You heard that right. Said the partnership should trouble parents. This is from the American Parents Coalition Executive Director, Alain Mar. Summer camps are designed for kids to have fun, make new friends, or learn new skills, not as opportunities for the Y to push gender ideology on young kids who are away from their parents. The YMCA's Camp Kaleidoscope, which partners with a radical LGBTQ plus organization that offers chest binders and other clothes to gender-confused individuals, including youth, ought to deeply concern parents. On its website, the Uniting Pride makes clear it believes that young people have the right to privacy and autonomy over their gender or sexual identity and the right to express their gender identity in school and utilize all facilities that match their gender identity. You heard that right. All facilities. That means not just on the field, but in the locker room too. Anyone of any age is welcome to apply to Uniting Pride to get the chest binders and stuff. The organization also says on its website, which has a quit exit feature to an option that helps critics have said enables children to hide access from their parents. So this is targeting kids. This is grooming behavior. I hear the wood chipper starting up. All members will have access to restroom and locker room facilities that correspond to their self-identified, self-reported gender identity to the extent permitted by applicable law. In Illinois, that means that they're going to be walking into each other's bathroom. What do you think is going to happen to one of those freaky counselors that decides, I think I'm a woman today? Stomp, 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 and goes into the little girl's bathroom with a bunch of 7, 8, 9-year-olds. This is nasty grooming behavior, and the wood chipper is hungry. The YMCA has recently become under fire from conservative groups like the Association of Parents Coalition over its endorsement of its affiliates allowing access to showers, locker rooms, and overnight facilities on the basis of gender identity. The YMCA scrubbed or hid a plethora of transgender-themed resources from its website last week after the American Parents Coalition launched its campaign against them. Bravo, APC. Bravo. Protect your kids. You leftists got no excuse for this type of behavior. If you have some sort of soul and you're a Democrat and you see this, this is what you're supporting. When you go somewhere else and you vote for these type of policies, you are supporting the grooming of children. I hope you have a soul because it's disgusting. You need to scrub it. Toodles.